If you want to compare the American experience with the European experience, in the US, which has more punitive drug laws, higher crime, higher incarceration rates, higher use of both hard and soft drugs, greater harm, higher disease rates. In the European experience, all of that is much less with the current punitive drug laws.
There is no way in which you can have a society totally free of drugs. So it's a question of how can you reduce the harm associated with drugs.
That there's been no proof that cannabis is a gateway drug to harder drugs, so that therefore you could just as easily compare it to alcohol, but alcohol is not being prohibited across the border.
Yeah, I think it's a misunderstanding. We're not arguing today that marijuana is a gateway drug. There are studies that suggest that increased risks to go on to other drugs. But today in the United States, more teenagers present themselves for marijuana treatment than for all other illegal drugs.
Marijuana is growing and growing alarmingly. More teenagers in the United States present themselves for treatment for marijuana dependency than all other illegal drugs combined. 60% of them are dependent on marijuana. Most baby boomers don't understand that marijuana is a dependency-producing substance, and that today it's the most significant cause of treatment need in this country of all the illegal drugs.
There's a view that we lock up 15-year-olds with marijuana. That's just ludicrous. We don't do that. Less than 1/2% of people in prisons in the United States for possession of marijuana. 20% are in prison for drugs, and most of them are drug traffickers. We cannot attack the market that's the drug trade without criminalizing the people who would sell to our children. Those who need help, we try to prevent and we try to treat.
Not only demonstrates the danger, but so do the needs that we're seeing with regard to treatment.
The fact of the matter is, when we look at treating the need for substance abuse dependent individuals in this country, what Americans still unfortunately do not understand is 60% of the 6 million people we have to provide treatment for who are dependent or abusing illegal drugs are dependent on marijuana.
We have more teenagers in the United States today seeking treatment for marijuana dependency than for all other illegal drugs combined, and more than for alcohol.
We know marijuana is the single biggest source of treatment need in the United States today. Of the 6 million people who need treatment for drug dependency or abuse, 60% are dependent on marijuana.
60% are dependent on marijuana.
And also helping people get into treatment, because denial is a part of the dependency on marijuana as well.
But today in the United States, more teenagers present themselves for marijuana treatment than for all other illegal drugs combined, and for the last couple of years more than for alcohol.
We have 6 million people who need treatment for drug dependence.
Marijuana is this addictive source of drug abuse in the United States today.
60% of those 6 million are dependent on marijuana. It's the single biggest source of creating treatment need in the United States of all the illegal drugs.
They arrested and charged 40,000 people in New York City for marijuana offenses. Those people then went, a lot of them, to a drug court. And the drug court says, well, we can try and save you from a record. We won't put you in jail, but we'll put you into treatment. So they're into treatment. So therefore, you're saying, the translation, you can extrapolate from that the fact that the marijuana users are the ones that are in treatment. Well, they're in treatment because of the structure.
This at the same time as it's actually on the decline amongst American kids.
The criminal sanction allows us to sort people who have the disease of addiction and get them into treatment through drug courts and other diversion programs, and take those who are criminals and punish them.
Decriminalization of marijuana is certainly not what I would consider the big issue necessarily among young people who are dying from overdoses of anything from ecstasy to heroin to cocaine.
There's not a question about whether marijuana is a dependency-producing substance today. Some people seem to be living with the views of reefer madness 70s. The fact that they...
So the reality, the science, the medical research that we've been funding.
It's not a part of a scare campaign. It's a part of a fact-based, science-based, evidence-based campaign.
Isn't it fair to say that there really is no good, reliable science on the link between decriminalization and drug use?
And because of our imperfect understanding, our actions have unintended consequences. And here is a case where we have a problem that actually defies a final and perfect solution, where our attempt to deal with it makes the problem worse than it would be otherwise.
It's not 1% THC, the psychoactive ingredient. It's 20 to 30%. It's many times more powerful.
Is this not part of a deliberate scare campaign to try and make marijuana look like it's more powerful and more dangerous?
They have an exploding growth of particularly high-potency marijuana.
Large quantity, high potency, and
some of that coming from Canada today has 30%.
to produce 20 to 30% THC content.
What mode he's basing his claims on, you have to again ask him where he's getting his data.
This is the crack of marijuana.
This is the Canadian doctor who oversees testing of marijuana seized in Canada. Dr. Richard Vio says while our pot is getting stronger, averaging 10 to 13% THC, it's extremely rare to find levels over 20%. As for the comparison to crack cocaine,
Would I make that analogy? No, I wouldn't make that analogy.
on its website, the RCMP reports seizing more marijuana over 10% THC. But it says even the stronger hydroponic pot has potency levels only in the mid-teens.
John Walters, the drug czar, says that there is marijuana available coming from Canada with THC contents of 20 to 30%. The RCMP, for example, on their website refers to marijuana of 10%, maybe in the mid-teens. Why the discrepancy?
Well, it may be what your police are looking at and seizing and analyzing and what we're getting. I would think that Canadians would want to export their best product.
Contrary to Mr. Walters, we believe that accuracy is the key to sensible drug policy. Mr. Walters consistently espouses inaccuracies, fabrications, and so forth, and I'd encourage listeners to C-SPAN to go to mapinc.org, search our news archive of over 100,000 articles on John Walters, and see what he has to say and compare it with a website, drugwarfacts.org, which puts out accuracy, balance, reason, and citable information on drug policy. That's the only way we're ever going to get sensible drug policies in this country and get rid of this totally failed war on drugs, is when the American public realizes what a complete rip-off and lie the war on drugs is and has been and will continue to be.
It's fine to put up a website and make all kinds of claims and treat all kinds of statements equally, but the fact is, I don't think there's any question. Drugs are dangerous, drugs are something we have to deal with,
and a big part of that threat is drugs.
We need to do a better job. When you buy drugs, they're not only bad for you, they're bad for this country, and they're bad for the principles of democracy and freedom that we cherish.
I'm about as conservative as you can get, but I mean, I do agree that some drugs need to be criminalized, like heroin and things like that, and crack, but it's absolutely ridiculous to criminalize marijuana, something that grows naturally all over the world without even soil, honestly. You know, and we've spent, what, over $300 billion since the 60s on the drug war? I mean, just on marijuana, not on the drug war, just on fighting marijuana. You know, you could have bought 3 million homeless people a $100,000 home with that money. It's ridiculous. And it doesn't destroy you. I've been smoking pot for 25 years. I'm high right now.
You have to come to BC.
See the Kootenays and the Kootenay Green. Kootenay Green marijuana laws.
Oh, right, okay.
It's a major industry there.
Yeah, that's the glaucoma nurse.
He didn't say a word while he was in here, and everybody was behaving themselves, but it was closing time, and all these guys come in, and everybody's saying, no, you can't bounce and meet John Walters. I don't care.
Nice.
And we were smoking some fabulous hash right here, sitting right here, and John Walters came by, blew a cloud of this fabulous hash right at Steve Walters.
John Walters.
John Walters.
Nice.
We may be the only ones in history to have ever smoked a bowl right next to the drug czar and not get beat down.
Nice, nice.
We're here this morning. I'm here this morning. We just came by for a cup of coffee, but unbelievable. We need to put a plaque.